Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Open Book Entrepreneur. We have Orly here with us. She's helping entrepreneurs actually become crystal clear with their messaging and a lot of other things. So, Orly, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, hello, and thank you, Tony, for having me on. I really looking forward to our conversation. So basically, what I do is I start by saying I literally have one superpower, and that superpower is I make fuzzy clear. And I'm also, by the way, I'm an author and a public speaker, an educator, and I call myself a brand whisperer. And what I do is I help entrepreneurs and small business owners clarify and communicate their zone of genius and go from invisible to memorable in 3 weeks and turn their LinkedIn profile into a lead generator. In addition to my consulting work, I've been a guest on many podcasts, and I think I'm close to 50 now. After yours, I think I'll be close to 50. I've also lectured at Wharton. I taught in the Close School of Entrepreneurship at Drexel and the University of Pennsylvania. And then my book, as I mentioned, I'm an author. My book, Ready Launch Brand, The Lean Marketing Guide for Startups, was published in May of 2021. It was endorsed by Seth Godin and was the #1 new business book release on Amazon in April of 2021. I'm currently working on my second book, which is called Why Not Me? The Female Guide for Entrepreneurship. And that book will be published this year.
Wonderful. So there's definitely a lot of things there. How do you manage all these things?
Yeah, well, like every good entrepreneur, that's what we love. We love having lots of things going on. What I find is, it's interesting because about 20 years ago, I wrote myself a mission statement and I really thought about where I wanted to focus. And so teaching, is something that I've been doing not every year, but fairly regularly. And that's given me a lot of credibility, the teaching part. The speaking, I started again 20 years ago. And that's really, before the pandemic, that was how I really got clients. And so I've had to, of course, shift like everyone else to online virtual speaking and virtual uh, workshops. And that's been a big shift. But the focus I have now is really this new book has sort of taken me in a different direction, but the first book really helped me build my consulting practice around brand building for entrepreneurs. And so the second book, with the focus on women founders, is also pushing me into an interesting new direction of potentially teaching about women leadership.
Nice. And then on top of that, like at the beginning, you mentioned about helping entrepreneurs actually turn their business, improve their business within 3 weeks. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How do you help them? What are the sort of results they can expect after they work with you?
Right. So great question. So first of all, let's start with the process itself, which, by the way, I've unpacked in my book. So literally walk you through the whole process. Um, but what the key things, there's really three areas. There's who am I, who are they, and what do they need? And how do I solve it, right? So how do I solve the problem? But in order to understand how you solve your client's problem, you need to understand who that client is, what their key problem is. I think a lot of times where people get stuck is they try to tell you too many things. They focus on what I do, how I do it. They go down all these rabbit holes and try to explain to you their process. And the reality is no one cares about your process. What they care about are the results. And so what I have found is that by helping an entrepreneur get crystal clear on who they are as a brand, what is their superpower? So my superpower is I make fuzzy clear. If that doesn't intrigue you, we probably aren't going to work together. And that's part of what, I talk about this as a hook, that you have to have that as the first it's a conversation starter, right? Where you really want to understand that there's something unique about what you do. Like, I don't say I'm a brand consultant because that's generic. That doesn't help you at all understand what I do. But making fuzzy clear is something that entrepreneurs struggle with all the time. In fact, the first thing I hear from people is how I don't know how to quickly explain what I do so that my prospects get it, want to value it, and want to learn more about it. So it's those three things, who am I, who are they? And then the key really is then communicating in such a way that I get what you do and how you can help me. And then the last piece of that is integrating this new way of speaking in your website and on your LinkedIn profile.
That's great. And then on top of that, because obviously a lot of entrepreneurs actually have a number of things that we have a lot of things that we're working on, a lot of projects, a lot of businesses and stuff like that. So how do you help in these situations when obviously we only have one LinkedIn profile, usually
Oh,
we have only one Facebook profile, Instagram and stuff. So
yeah.
how do you help them in that situation?
Great question. So, and I don't know how many people are going to be happy to hear what I'm about to say, which is you got to let things go. Does not mean that you don't do these other things, but when it comes to communicating, you cannot be all things to all people because then you become nothing to everyone. And so on LinkedIn is a perfect example. And I've also worked on Instagram, but my focus really has become LinkedIn because I'm taking my own advice, which is to focus on one platform. And that platform for me is LinkedIn because that's where all my clients are, because I'm in the B2B space. And I don't know if you know this, there are 1 billion people on that platform right now, billion monthly users. Yeah, when I first started doing these workshops and speaking about LinkedIn, there were 395 million, and that was about 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, it's crazy how fast that's moving. So anyway, yeah, so I think the problem is that we're spread too thin, and we feel like if we don't talk about all these things, then somehow we're leaving something out. And what I have learned is it's exactly the opposite. If you focus on one thing, so when I talk about the fact that I help entrepreneurs go from, basically invisible to memorable in 3 weeks, I make fuzzy clear, does not mean that I can't do that for nonprofits or family-owned businesses, or that I'm also a speaker. I don't focus on that because I've decided to focus on my consulting practice. So what my advice is always, what is the thing that A, you're most passionate about? B is the thing that's also going to make you money because you actually have to earn a living. And 3, what is the thing that you can quickly sort of connect with people on? So speaking, that's a very separate thing because I have obviously a speaking page on my website, but I start by messaging around what I'm able to do, and then I work from there.
Okay, brilliant. And then, like, what are some of the best results people got when they were working with you?
Yeah, that's such a, I have quite a few stories. I'm actually going to tell you a story of a day camp, of all things. And what was interesting about that project was that they had been messaging on the same idea for, 40 years. And what the first thing I did was we did we need qualitative and quantitative analysis, right? So we did an online survey. They got 100 responses. And one of the questions I asked, what is the number one reason that you send your child here? Now, let me back up here. The messaging they were doing was all around the lake. Okay. And so when I asked them about the number one thing, the reason, not one person mentioned the lake. The
Hmm.
lake was not the reason they sent kids there. It turned out after, I looked at dozens of letters, I did interviews with the staff. It was a fascinating project. And what I learned was the reason that parents sent their kids there is because those kids learned how to swim. They have actually one of the strongest swim program in Northeast Pennsylvania, which is where the camp is. They'd also been, by the way, they'd also been trying to compete with Maine. Okay, so in terms of how beautiful the place was. Now, the place is beautiful, but Maine is literally the number one vacation land in the country. No one is going to win trying to compete on that message. So what I discovered was, and this is really their new tagline, it's the place where small kids do big things.
Wow. Yeah. Fantastic. And what was the result for them then?
Right. So this is a summer day camp.
Yeah.
Before the rebrand, they still had open spots in July. After the rebrand, they had a wait list in March.
Wow. Well done, well done. Yeah, I love this
Yeah.
story. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah, wonderful. And then also, obviously, like one of the things that I wanted to ask you as well is about how do you deal with challenges in your business or businesses? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, as technology is, it's like a runaway horse. I mean, it's gone. It's like, whatever was applicable a few years ago, no longer. I mean, you're lucky if it stays relevant for 6 months now, So that has very much upended my business because, I started out, I was doing print. I had a design and marketing communications firm actually for 14 years, and we did print projects and we were very successful. What happens is when everything changes, if you don't change with it, you have really two choices. You change or you close your doors. And what I learned was that and this is, I think, one of the challenges that I talk to my clients, especially ones who are building a LinkedIn profile when they're going from corporate to starting their own company. How do you then adapt your skill set, all the things that you are so good at, and then bring them into a new environment? And so what I discovered is all of that experience doesn't go to waste. It's why I'm able to look at your homepage and pretty much in a few minutes, I know what needs to be done because I've done that kind of work. But the challenge is that then you also have to find new clients, right? Because your client base changes. The thing that I have found that's been the most interesting is that as technology speeds everything up and the amount of content, which by the way, I believe that on YouTube, we are up downloading. Is it downloading? Uploading, downloading. I think we're downloading something like 500 hours of content every minute. Like it's insane. This is globally, obviously, not just the United States. But it's just so crazy, right? You think about that. So we're constantly being messaged, thousands and thousands of daily messages. And as the number of messages have increased, our ability to even, see these messages has decreased. So our attention span now is 8 seconds. In 2000, it was 12 seconds. On LinkedIn, it's somewhere between 5 and 7 seconds. That's how long somebody will spend at the top of your profile before they decide whether to keep scrolling. So my challenge, and the one hand, it's like good news, bad news, right? On the one hand, what I do has become even more relevant because no one's got time to figure out what you do. No one has time to sit through and hear you talk. And this is whether they're on your website or you're in a networking room. Nobody's going to listen to 15 minutes of you explaining what you do. The challenge for me has been, how do I then help people understand the value of it? That's for me been a big challenge. And then, of course, everyone's challenge, which is consistent revenue and having enough clients in the pipeline and kind of and that process has changed too. So it's not just that the environment has changed, that the type of client has changed, but also how you are able to connect with them. I mean, so yeah, it's
Totally.
hard, very challenging. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. On that line as well, just before we finish, I would like to mention something like that really improved the way I use artificial intelligence, for example, to help me with some things in my business. Like a few days ago, I was watching this Stanford professor who was talking about, how he helped this group of national parks in the States save like 8,000 hours a year. And he was saying what he actually does. He's teaching how to use artificial intelligence at Stanford University, and he got together with these sort of like managers of the parks, and he said to them, "Look, guys, if you let's just sit together and use it in this new way." Yeah, and he said to them, "Okay, like what we're going to do, instead of just asking the question to ChatGPT or some other model, you can just say, okay, this is what I want to do. write me the best prompt on what to ask you to get the best result. And they started sort of like playing with this in this new way, and immediately they got really great results and save a lot of time by creating some forms that can fill themselves in very quickly and stuff. And this is what I started applying to my business as well. And it's really a massive improvement on how to use the technology going forward. So yeah, definitely on top of what you were saying, how you help your clients. And I believe that this is addition to what's happening, and it's great, really.
Yeah, and I will say one last thing, because of course I also use a chat GPT, and mostly just to try to kind of firm up what I'm working on. But you're right, you can ask it now, it's becoming more and more sophisticated. But here's the thing, you know what they say, if you ask the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter. So you also have to know what to ask, and you have to know what the goal is. And artificial intelligence doesn't know that. It knows how to answer your questions, at least at this point in time. Now, I don't know where we're going to be in a few years, but I still feel like what's important is you still need someone to help you make sense of all of this stuff, because content is not the problem. It's understanding the content and how to apply it properly. That's really the problem we're
Wow,
solving now.
that's a big thing. Yeah. That's a big thing and big statement. Thank you so much, Orly, for sharing that. I think on that note, with this wonderful tip, content is not a problem. It's about how to apply the content. It's wonderful. So and for people to understand exactly what the content is all about. So thank you, Orly, so much for being a guest today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your tips, your story as well with us. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you liked it, drop us a like, subscribe, and also see you all in the next episode. All the best, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.